Will bootstrapping frustrate your business idea? That's a question that I've seen over on the interwebs a couple of times this last week, not just on TikTok, but on Instagram as well. And just in case you're wondering if you heard me correctly, yes, there actually is business content on TikTok as well. There's also some good chess content on TikTok. That's if you are an adult improver like I am, you're trying to improve your chess game. So there's loads of stuff that you can find on TikTok. So it's not just influencers twerking and people doing dance memes and stuff like that. So I guess when it comes to all this algorithmic stuff, especially for the video-based ones. That's YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels, TikTok. I guess it whatever is you make of it. So if you keep watching the twerking videos and the dance challenges, and you keep liking that kind of content, then that's what it's going to keep serving up to you. So, but if you want to use TikTok and the new um, video features for all these social media sites. If you have other interests and you want to pursue them over there, then it's a good way to go about that. Anyway, I digress. The bottom line is, yes, if you are interested in that sort of content, video content, sorry, business content on TikTok, you can find those sorts of things, and maybe you will find all those videos where people are talking about bootstrapping as well. So there's this idea that you ought to bootstrap, or else it's going to frustrate your business. The idea being that if you, sorry, no, that bootstrapping is going to frustrate your business, so you should fundraise. You should raise capital from investors. So the idea being that raising capital from investors is the easier way to go about it, and is the best way to guarantee the success of your business enterprise. So that's the question that I want to tackle today. Or rather, I'm going to tackle the question in several stages over the couple of maybe 2 or 3 days, because I think that this whole question of bootstrapping versus fundraising raises a number of important issues. Well, first off, definitions. And remember that for me, I like to use working definitions. That's because I want a simple definition that everyone can relate to, because it's all about being practical in the moment. So, the definitions that you're going to hear during the course of this podcast episode are not going to be technically correct, and they're not going to be exhaustive, but they're working definitions just so that we know what's up and we can apply easily in our day to day. So, bootstrapping. Sorry, excuse me. The usual. Kids are back in school, they're cold. I know you guys are tired of hearing me and my children wahala and cold and sneezing and all that. But don't worry. Um, this stage is not going to last too long, because eventually they're going to grow out of primary school, and yeah, we'll be beyond that stage. So, definitions. Bootstrapping. Um, Traditionally, when most people said bootstrapping, what they meant was funding a business from using your savings. So if you open a bakery, or if you got into the wedding photography game, or you started buying and selling cement, if you were bootstrapped, that means that you took your savings from your corporate job, or from your inheritance, or whatever. The bottom line is, was money from savings that you used to start the business. And that's the old school idea of bootstrapping. Now, in modern times, however, when people say bootstrapping, that also includes growing the business using the revenue that you have from paying customers. So, you're getting into the cement game, you take your inheritance, you buy a few bags of cement, you start selling, your customers send you money, um, that's your revenue. And then you take from that revenue, you don't put anything in the bank, you don't use it to buy a brand new car, you don't use it to do anything. You take all that revenue and you plow it back into the business to buy more cement to sell. So in the modern context, that is also considered to be bootstrapping. Taking the revenue that you get, plow it back into the business, and then you're growing it that way. Um, so, in a modern context, that's what bootstrapping is. You start off using your savings or whatever money that you raise yourself, pretty much, not from investors, not from your uncle, not from your aunt, not from your parents. Um, so, I mean, however you get the money, whether you save from work, or you win it on Bet Niger, or your grandfather left you something when he died. That's it, bootstrapping, and then includes revenue from customers as well. So that's the idea of bootstrapping. So of course, fundraising. Well, it's obvious what fundraising is. You go around, you try to raise funds. When I say fundraising, I also like to include the, should I say, semi-formal avenues. So I still think if you go and speak to your wealthy uncle, and your wealthy uncle gives you like 500K to start off, I still consider that to be fundraising because in most situations, your uncle kind of expects the money back at some point, even if you guys didn't talk about it. So since it's money that has expectations attached to it, I would also include that sort of thing as fundraising. So you're talking to your rich uncle or your rich aunt, or let's say you have a software idea. Some of these the new wave of Nigeria guys, everybody's trying to build the next Facebook and the next big software company. So you're speaking to professional investors, or you're trying to get money from what's it called? All um, these gosh, escape my mind now. There's this Nigerian bank that is lending. Is it Nigerian Development Bank? A couple of banks like that, anyway, that like to lend money for huge capital outlay and then stuff like that. So if you're talking to those kinds of people, all that is fundraising. So now we have the definitions out of the way. So if you're going to bootstrap, is that going to frustrate your business idea? In my own opinion, it's not going to frustrate your business idea. Well, not necessarily, but that is if you have a viable idea to begin with. And of course, for those of you who've been listening to the show for a while, you know that we've spoken about ways that you can validate your business idea. So if you have some market validation, and the traditional avenues include pre-selling. That's when you're ready to launch, you're ready to get into the game, and you don't quite have the stuff ready yet, but you still collect money from people anyway, and it's from that money that you collect that you use to finance um, the project. So that's what a pre-order is. I can't give an example in the wedding space because we don't pre-order in the wedding and the event space, but it's something that people do in other industries. So, for instance, people who do organize events, like people who launch parties. I mean, like think back to the days when we were in university, and you have those chaps, those guys and girls who are kind of hucksters. People who go around and organize campus parties. That is the sort of thing that is pre-selling because they haven't booked the venue yet, they haven't gotten the entertainment yet, but they go around and they collect money from all of us anyway. And it's only after they collect the money that they lock down the venue, get the entertainment, get the drinks, things like that. And that's the reason why for some of those parties, you guys would show up and not everything that was promised that was going to be on the bill will end up being on the bill. And that's because they didn't set up the whole thing before they started selling tickets. They sold the tickets first and then used that money to finance the party. Well, in this case, let's just call it the business venture to finance the business venture. So that's what pre-selling is. That's a way of validating the idea, and the whole point of validating the idea is just to see, is this thing workable? Are people going to drop money? Is this something worth our time? So, like back in the uni days, the people who did those sorts of things, you've now been able to validate that this idea can work, and that is how some of these clubs in university setting was born. Like there was one of the, I can't remember the name of the club anyway, because I've been out of school for a while, but that's pretty much how one of the newer clubs was um, set up by people in my own set. So it was that sort of thing. Uh, this is the idea. You're able to pre-sell a couple of tickets. You launch a party. You guys are good promoters, and then eventually you turn it into a club, and then that's a business. So yeah, so that's pre-selling as a way of validating. Are people willing to drop money for this? If people are willing to commit ahead of time, excuse me, then you know that you have a valuable business, something on your hands. And then there's also the one that I advocate time and time again on the podcast, which is just go out and see how much of these things you can actually sell. So if you want to get into wedding photography, videography, or let's say like the cement case, for instance, You don't have to go and buy 1,000 bags of cement if you want to find out if this is something, a valid business idea. If you can save up and buy a couple of bags, buy 20, buy 50, and you're able to sell the 50 in a week, you're like, okay, maybe there's something here. And then you take the money from the 50 and then buy maybe 120. You're able to sell the 120 in 3 weeks or in a month. And you're like, okay, maybe there's something here. And then you start scaling, going from there. So you're validating your business idea step by step. So these are the traditional ways of validating your business idea. You do the pre-sale, or you just go ahead and start selling directly to people. So you'll find that for a lot of businesses that most folks can think of, you'll find that bootstrapping is not going to be a problem. So if you want to be a party promoter, pre-selling is not a problem. If you want to sell cement, or if you want to sell bread, or if you're doing any kind of trading, for instance, then pre-selling or direct selling techniques to validate the idea, that's not going to be a problem. Excuse me. Now, however, you should not bootstrap, and I repeat, you should not, capital Not, bootstrap, if your idea requires economics of scale. There are some ideas that are not going to work except if you do it big from the get go. So, mobile apps, software, and all these people that do online tutoring businesses and blah blah blah, stuff like that. Those things require economics of scale. If you're setting up an online business, you want people to sign up, you're collecting 1K per person. It doesn't make sense if you start this thing and then only 10 people sign up. That's just 10K. 10K is not going to cover your data and your phone call bills and the cost of the videographer for recording your cost. It's not going to cut it. So if you're doing an online course and it's going to be 1K per person, you are trying to see how you can get 100 people to sign up, 200 people, 300, 500. I mean, you get the picture. So some business models like that require economics of scale. If you're creating an app and you're hoping to raise money from advertising, what you're looking at is economics of scale, because the advertisers are going to be paying you um, based on a certain number of impressions, and the impressions are usually per thousands or something like that. So um, it's not going to make a lot of sense if you get this app going, you're not able to get lots of people on it, and then advertisers, so excuse me, and then advertisers are basically giving you chicken change, maybe 5K or 10K, something like that. It's not going to make sense. So for all these ideas that require economics of scale, which means that you need to have hundreds and thousands of people on this thing before you can start making money, you are going to need to raise funds that are going to support you, and you're going to support the business before it gets to the scale where you can start getting revenue, or where you can break even. So back to the online course thing. If you're going to do an online course, for instance, you're going to pay the videographer, except if the video person is your brother, or your husband to be. Because I know a friend, well, she ended up marrying the guy anyway. So, they're living happily ever after now. And they currently have one son. She gave birth last year. She's a cake artist. He was a video guy. So if you're in that kind of situation, then hey, it's not a problem. If he's your husband to be, then sure, no problem. He'll keep recording the videos for you for free, because both of you guys are building an asset together for the family. So, if you're not in that kind of situation, the videographer is going to want money from you at some point. Let's see what else. Apart from that, you're going to have to pay for website hosting. Well, okay, well, maybe not, because you might put the videos on YouTube. Okay, well, if you're putting them on YouTube, then it kind of defeats the whole process. It means that the videos are going to be free. Okay, so you're going to have to pay for website hosting. You have to pay the videographer. I'm assuming that you have to pay the people who are going to, your tech support people, because you have to find ways to collect money from people online. There's going to be tech support, recording video, website hosting, what else? A couple of things that are going to be required. Money will have to be dropped upfront, and then of course it's not just going to be one video. You're going to have to record a series of videos before you get this online course thing rolling. So until you do all that, you definitely have to raise funds because you have to pay the video guy. The video guy can't show up Monday, Wednesday, and Friday this week, and then you say, "I'll see you next week," and then he shows up Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then you tell him, "You know what? Things are rough. I'll see you next week." There's a limit to how much I see you that you can pull. So you have to raise money to pay this guy. You have to raise money, book the website domain. You have to raise money, pay the hosting fees. You have to raise money, pay the branding guys. What else? You also have to raise money, run Instagram ads because you can't just launch your course and then tell your mom and tell your siblings and then tell your cousins and expect that that's going to be what will get the word rolling because you need a wider um, base of folks to reach before you begin. So you also have to budget for your Instagram ads, your Facebook ads, or Google ads, or whatever. So in this case, you have to raise funds. And so it's the same thing with all those other businesses. If you're going to do an app-based business, some businesses just require economics of scale. If it requires economics of scale, then don't think you can do this thing by bootstrapping. And it's something I've had to advise people in the past, like, hey, you know what? This seems like a wonderful idea. But truth of the matter is, before this thing is going to work, you have to grow this into a certain size. And while you're trying to grow this thing, you still have to be paying the guys who are coding. You have to still pay the guys who are designing, and you have to pay the people on the back end who are doing fulfillment and shipping, and then all of that. So you just have to raise funds for some of those businesses. So if your business requires economics of scale, then yes, bootstrapping is going to frustrate your business. And how long do you need to raise funds for? It depends. Supposedly, people say that Jumia and Konga right now are currently not at break even. That's the gist that I've heard. It's not something I've looked into. But that's just an example of what it is that we're talking about. So Jumia, Konga, I think Amazon took maybe like was it like 20 years or so to break even. But in the meantime, while these sites are up and running, you need funds to be paying salary, to be paying staff, to be paying for delivery, paying for warehousing, paying for shipping, paying for all of that. That's money going out the door. Nothing has come in yet, and you can't bootstrap that. So even if Dangote is your uncle or is your father, there's a limit to how much of this is going to that he's willing to drop. Um, there's a limit to how much money he's going to drop on this venture. So you have to raise funds at some point. So Jumia, Konga, those are the Nigerian ones. Of course, we already know Facebook, Amazon. What else? So yeah, some of them require economics of scale. Fortunately, in the event and the wedding space, in most cases, you don't have to do financing. In fact, I won't even recommend financing, but I've made a podcast episode on that, so I'm not going to go into that in detail. So for in the wedding and the event space, we can go the MVP route. And the MVP just basically means the minimum viable product. So that means the smallest part of your idea that is workable. You just start with that. Um, it's a term for that our brothers and sisters in the tech space use, but it's something we can borrow. So the minimum viable product in this case, let's say photography, for instance, all you need is one camera. You just get one camera and then you try and get a couple of gigs. That's it. That's your minimum viable product there because you're trying to see if this can work. And the minimum thing that you need to invest is one camera body, one lens, one flash. So is that something that you can raise on your own? So you do that, you try and see if you can hustle a few gigs, and you find out if this is a workable idea. So that's the thing. What's the minimum viable product? What is the smallest workable version that you can start with? So for most people in the wedding space, that's how we get into the game. For photographers, that's how you do. One camera, you call your friend. Between both of you, you guys have one flash and rough it out. For wedding planners, it's the same. You like this thing, you think it's cool, you can't run it alone. You call BC. BC is your friend. Both of you run it together. You're in the hall. BC is outside trying to manage the vendors, and then you guys try and make it work from there. So after you get this MVP, the minimum viable product, and you're able to validate the idea, then later on you can now seek for investments to grow the idea. So eventually you think uh, you and BC, you guys are doing well. You guys are raising some money. Sorry, you guys are doing well. You're getting some revenue, but you want to blow. You want to get this thing big. You guys want to get warehouse space. You want to buy your own bus. What else? You want to have your own staff. Um, what else? What else is needed? So anyway, you want to blow. At that point, you have something. It looks like it's workable. You can now start having those conversations with your wealthy uncle, or if you can put together a good business plan, start talking to um, the banks that are built around extending credit to business, like what are they called? The microcredit banks, the credit banks, and stuff like that. So yeah, so you start with the MVP. Later on, you can get the financing that you need so that you guys can blow. Um, like if you're a photographer in this case, you started just you and Kunle, two cameras, one flash between both of you, but now you want the studio space with nice paneling, soundproofing, um, let's see what else, fancy Apple computers, with the massive, 17-inch screens and all that, space in Maitama or space in Lekki and all that. Then yes, at that point you can raise your financing, but you started off with a minimum viable product. You started off with the MVP and you've been able to validate that this is a good idea. So, in summary, will bootstrapping frustrate your business idea? Not necessarily so. It depends on the business in question. For those of you who've been listening to the show for a while, you already know what my views are on people who raise a bunch of finance without having clear expectations about how much you raise, how long you need it for, when you're going to pay back, and what the obligations are. Are these people going to get equity for their money, or are they going to get interest? All those questions. So no point in rehashing them there. But these are sorry, rehashing them here. So, but these are the important things that you ought to look out for. So, whatever podcast player that you have, if you use the search function there, you should be able to find the episodes where I've discussed these sorts of things on the podcast. And yeah, after you're done listening to this, you can search, scroll, and and then take part in the older discussions that we've had on the matter. So, thank you very much for listening to this recording. We've gone past the 20-minute mark. I haven't done that in a while. Let's see how I can keep it back to 10 on the next one. And I think I still have a few more ideas to flesh out on this whole bootstrapping thing. So, we'll continue the conversation tomorrow. And yeah, so that's it. Thanks for your time and attention. I'll catch you guys at the next recording.